Hey guys, welcome to another episode of For the Painter Good. My name's Sean as always, and today I'm going to take you through how we're going to build a White Scars 1000 points army list. Now, of course, this is obviously inspired by the new amazing character that we've seen, Subodin Khan. Subodin Khan is awesome looking, isn't he? He's obviously got that jet bike, or grav bike I believe it's actually called in that case. It looks really good, really awesome. It's awesome to actually have like a White Scars mounted character now. I know we have Corsaro Khan, of course, but it's nice to actually see one who's actually on a grav bike, in this case a mounted White Scars character, who really feels like they're very much in that actual, like, the mold of a White Scars character, effectively what we all think a White Scars character actually is. So I'm sure there's a lot of people that are going to be really excited to actually get him. In this case, I'm probably one of them, to be honest with you. But I'm sure a lot of people might be a little bit inspired to actually start a White Scars army just off of the back of getting this character. So that's kind of the subject of today's video, actually. And I'll do one of these for each of the new Space Marine character models that we've got. We'll create a 1000 points army based on their chapter. Kind of some of the things that I think might narratively go with their chapter per se. I will try and get a little bit of stuff that can join other units, for example, so there will be a little bit of cohesion rules wise there as well. The points values are as they currently are on the 29th of July 2025, so as it currently stands, the points is what I'll be using here. In that case, I'll of course give the points when I'm actually calling the list out at the end as well, and that kind of thing, and I'll summarize the list at the end here as well. But stick around if you want to hear my take on a 1000 points White Scars list, and let's dive right into it. So the first character we're going to add to this list, our first HQ unit, is Corsaro Khan. Now, I'm not entirely sure, I'm actually just on the Games Workshop website here. I'm not entirely sure if he is Finecast. Do help me out, guys, if he is, because as far as I can see it says that he's in plastic, so I think he is a plastic model, so I feel comfortable enough recommending him in that case. Now, I wish he was on a bike. He's not on a bike, but he is our first character here. We're of course including Subodin Khan in this list as well, but I'm counting Subodin Khan outside of the 1000 points. So these are 1000 points list to go with the new character then, in that case, not 1000 points including the new character, because of course I don't know how many points they're going to be at this moment in time, at the time of recording. So Corsaro Khan, what can we say about him? Corsaro Khan is the captain of the 3rd Company of White Scars, and his nickname is the Master of the Hunt. He pursues and executes the chapter's greatest living foes, an indefatigable huntsman, tracking his quarry across the stars before running them to ground and taking their head with a masterful sweep of his deadly blade, Moonfang. Very cool. Excellent lore excerpt, by the way. Actually, that's just on the Warhammer app, by the way. That's just my brief kind of look into him there. So he can join a lot of units. He's quite flexible in that sense. He can join assault intercessors, Bladeguard veterans, company heroes, intercessors, stern guard, and tactical squad. He's pretty cool. He's an awesome looking White Scars character. As I said, he is the only White Scars character we currently have named at the moment, so it'd be really cool to include him in this list. Have the 2 named White Scars characters in the same list could be really cool. Obviously at this time of recording as well, I don't know the rules for Subodin Khan, who he can join and that kind of thing. So we're starting off this list with Corsaro Khan here in that case. His Moonfang is pretty good with devastating wounds here. I'm going to try not to dive into the rules side of it too much, guys, but as I'm trying to help you build a bit of a kind of starter army, I want you to be able to get a feel for how I'm thinking about this as well. So Corsaro Khan is how we're going to start this, right? And Corsaro Khan is able to join obviously quite a few units in that case as a captain effectively here. But it's his ability that I'm really particularly interested in, his actual like datasheet abilities as well. So he's obviously quite a well-rounded character from a leadership perspective. But while he's leading a unit, ranged weapons have the assault ability, so you can obviously advance and shoot. Very handy, always good in many situations, to be honest with you. But the melee ability is where I want to have a look at it as well, which is when he leads models in a unit, melee weapons in that unit have lance, which means that in layman's terms, when you charge, you'll get +1 to wound effectively in that case. Really useful. Every time he destroys a character, he gives you a CP as well, so that's really very handy considering that his Moonfang has precision as well in that case. So you can literally go and headhunt leaders and get CP while you're doing it, which is awesome as well then in that case. So it is really good in that sense. That those are the two abilities that stand out to me as making him a good starting point here. Quite well rounded. He can join a few characters, so you can chop and change who he comes with in this list. I will dive into who he's going to join in my list in particular actually, but that's just a head starting point here. So I'm going to go through this in terms of HQs. I'll do battle line, and then I'll obviously jump into the other data sheets then afterwards then in that case. So this is our main guy, and this is our warlord as well, by the way. For our next HQ unit, guys, we've got the chaplain on bike then in that case. The only mounted range option available to Space Marines at the moment here in that case. So he does exactly what he says on the tin. He's really cool. He's obviously like the only mounted character, so we're leaning into that ride hard, ride fast aesthetic with the White Scars, as all White Scar players should really in that case. He can obviously join Outriders as well. We'll get to that later as well. Obviously, he gives them +1 to wound, which is obviously really good in that case. And then as well as that, he can obviously give devastating wounds with his Catechism of Fire effect as well then in that case. So that's really good as well. He is able to take enhancements obviously, which is nice. Corsaro Khan obviously doesn't have that. He leads a very specific unit as well, one that we definitely want to include. We obviously want Outrider squads in this list as well, with it being White Scars. So yeah, we really do. He is a really good character. He's also a big melee beat stick as well, basically. And he has that speed that Corsaro Khan doesn't offer to his unit as well. So really good for that early board pressure. Really good in terms of that as well. There is a bit of wiggle room in this list as well, so he can take enhancements as well and that kind of stuff. There will be a few lists that I'm going to do for this series where you'll have a few points at the end to dish out for enhancements and that kind of thing as well then. So that's our chaplain on bike then in that case as well. And the last character we've got then in this list is a Primaris Librarian here. This is probably a bit of an odd one for White Scars if you kind of don't know too much about them as an actual faction and that kind of thing. But often in 40k and particularly in Heresy as well, White Scars would have Storm Seers, which are effectively their version of Librarians in that case. So they call them Storm Seers because they often control elemental magic and that kind of thing as well, or elemental warp energies in that case as well. So I think he's a good pick in that case. Again, trying to lean a bit into the fluffier. So we've got our named White Scars character. We have a chaplain on bike who leans into our mounted aspect of things. And then this is our Storm Seer in that case as well. So this is our guy here who's obviously our Psyker in this list as well. He's obviously got his ranged attacks that he can do really well with. He's got his force weapon. D3 damage is nothing to smirk at, to be honest with you. When it rolls, 5s and 6s and does flat 3 damage to you, that's pretty painful, to be honest with you. He also gives a 4-up Feel No Pain against the psychic attacks. That's not a big one for me personally. I don't find that that's particularly useful most of the time. I don't play against psychic armies though most of the time, so I don't really think about it in that perspective. But the one that I do like actually is the Mental Fortress, which is while leading a unit, he gives them a 4-up invulnerable save. So he's basically like Azrael in that sense. He gives them that 4-up invulnerable save. So it keeps those squishy Astartes units really good and protected as well in that case. It's really useful because obviously our foot guys have to slog it up the board sometimes, and pulsars don't have an enormous transport capacity. Drop pods maybe don't hold as many as we want them to. Rhinos are kind of, I don't know, for Primaris models, Rhinos just don't really go for me basically at the moment and that kind of stuff. Plus if I was to buy a Rhino, I would throw it into my Emperor's Children list at the moment, but that's not why we're here today. And then obviously Land Raiders are very expensive as well at the moment. So I like the fact that he gives them that invulnerable save then in that case. You get a 50-50 chance against anything of staying alive. And I don't think you can ask too much more than that. He's also got an enormous list of models that he can join, obviously, in that case, like from Assault Intercessors, Desolation Squads, Devastator Squads, Hellblasters, Infernus Marines, Intercessors, Stern Guard Veterans, and Tactical Squads. So he's got a big variety of units here. So he can nearly chop and change with Corsaro Khan if you find something works particularly well with him that actually maybe originally I had for Corsaro Khan. Chop and change it then and that kind of stuff. Get a feel for how these units work. Just because I put them this way doesn't mean this is the way you've got to put them and that kind of stuff. And just because I come up with this list doesn't mean this is the only list you got to use. This is just purely my opinion here and that kind of stuff. So I'd be really interested to hear you guys' take on some of these lists as well. And do let me know in the comments down below at the end. Do you reckon that these are good HQ choices? This is a good kind of 3 HQ choices. That's as many points as I wanted to actually plow into the HQ choices actually in that case. It's not too many, but it is 210 points. So it is about 20% of, just over 20% of our points have gone into HQ choices. I think they all offer something really good. They're all kind of quite different as well in that sense, where the Chaplain and Corsaro Khan are quite offensive characters and the Librarian is quite a defensive character as a result then in that case. So let me know what you guys think. I'd be really interested to hear it in the comments below then in that case. And do let me know if you think they're better characters that'll fit the rest of the army as well when I go through the rest of the army. For our first battle line unit here of the list, we're actually going to have some Assault Intercessors here in that case. So Assault Intercessors I think are one of the best looking battle line units in the game, to be honest with you. I love their poses. I think they're really dynamic. It's one of the reasons why I actually think the new Blood Claw kit is really nice. I know a lot of people were quite down on them because they're quite just overly exaggerated Assault Intercessors, but I quite like that if I'm going to be totally honest with you. I think it looks really cool. I think these guys look really dynamic, and if you're not into that more exaggerated posing but you want them more active looking than normal Intercessors, these are definitely a great one. I've seen some great conversions actually of people that use Assault Intercessor bodies for normal Intercessors. And it looks really cool because there's so much more extra dynamism in their movement as well. It just looks awesome. So you'll definitely find it on like Instagram or YouTube or anything like that. But I really like these guys. They, you know, we're going to go a 10-man squad here of Assault Intercessors here in that case. It's really good. Obviously they get to reroll wound rolls of 1 natively, and then when they're on objectives, or when your enemies are on objectives I should say, you get to reroll all wounds, which is pretty tasty to be honest in that case. And these guys I would pair with Corsaro Khan. So we want our lance ability in that case. So that gives us, if you're piling into, you know, you've got strength 4 chain swords, you're piling into a Death Guard unit here, let's say, I don't know, Plague Marines are toughness 6 at the moment, so they're a good example of this. So you're plowing into Plague Marines at toughness 6, they're hard to shift, they're much higher toughness than you. Corsaro Khan gives you lance and you reroll all your wounds. Job done. That will cut through most things as well. I'm sure there's some strats to get some extra AP in there as well, which would be really useful and that kind of thing as well. So you can try and pump them up a bit as well. Of course, don't forget, we'll always get the +1 to wound from kind of Oath of Moment targets as well. But these are really good if you want to aim them at something else other than your Oath of Moment target in that case. For me, they're just one of the best battle line options in that case. I've really fallen into this trap of liking melee armies at the moment and that kind of stuff. Not necessarily a trap, but I quite like my melee armies at the moment and that kind of stuff. I played a game with Tau recently. I didn't enjoy it. I found them quite oppressive, and because I play a few different armies now, I've started to look at phases outside of that. So I'm looking at playing more phases of the game as well. So, but back to this anyway. The Assault Intercessors really for me are awesome, to be honest with you. And as I said, these will be Corsaro Khan's unit that he will join effectively in that case as well. So that's really cool anyway. Next up here, I've just got a normal Intercessor squad. Normal Intercessors are perfect. I think there's a place for them. Now, we're only going for a 5-man here, so it will be a little bit inconvenient if you've got a 10-man box sitting in front of you, so I apologise for that. You could take some of them and chop and change for the Assault Intercessors if you wanted to, but we're going to pick a 5-man squad here. That's just for points, and also for that sticky objective, that ability where you control an objective at the end of your command phase, and that unit's within range of it. It stays under your control until your opponent comes and takes it off you. It's really good. They also got a little bit of a buff, obviously, where they're target elimination, so they get to shoot twice, which is pretty handy. It's pretty useful, to be honest with you, and that kind of thing. So it's really good. I like them. I like the sticky objectives, and for me narratively as well, I always like to have a squad of normal intercessors in my armies, because they are the backbone of the Primaris age effectively here. They are the basic infantry here. So I really like them as just that kind of narrative piece, and the fact they give you sticky objectives is pretty cool as well, because it means everybody else can run off and do different things. These guys can cover your backfield, they'll pick an objective, make it sticky, and then they can take cover and spread out to prevent some deep strike in your backfield. So I think that's kind of cool. They won't be alone in our backfield, but we'll get onto that next with some of the next units later on here. So we're going to branch out now from battle line down into other data sheets then in that case. So this is where we can start to get a little bit spicy with some units. So next up, we've got our assault intercessors with jump pack here. So you might think as a White Scars, this is obviously like ride hard, ride fast. We can fly up quickly. It does lean into that speed side of things as well. But for me, putting them in this list, again, I'm trying to build you quite a well-rounded list. It's quite kind of combat-oriented at the moment. That will kind of chop and change. So far, our only kind of ranged unit, if you want to call it that, is the intercessors at the moment. We will add a couple of more little touches to it and that kind of stuff to try and round out the list a little bit and that kind of thing. But for me, these guys, one of their best abilities, and one that I use in every game of Warhammer, I always use it in every game of Warhammer I play, Deep Strike. Deep Strike is so useful every time and that kind of thing. Yes, they've got Hammer or Wrath. They can hit really hard in close combat as well and that kind of thing. But you got to remember, it's just chainswords really, and maybe one power fist you're swinging with, or a power sword. So you're not going to mulch, Terminators or anything like that. You can do a good bit of damage with Hammer of Wrath and that kind of thing. But we are only doing a 5-man here as well. So this is specifically like a deep strike unit in my eyes, basically, and that kind of thing. So you deploy everything else on the board, put these in reserve, and you bring them down as and when you need them. They will be a great deterrent if somebody's trying to charge chaff at you, though, because you could rapid ingress them in for 1 CP, and now your opponent is like, oh dear, here's 4 chainswords and a power sword or a power fist that I've got to try and get through, and they're probably not going to get through it if they throw a chaff unit at you. So that's my take on these guys. They're really good. If you do want to just deploy them on the board straight away, they're fast, they hit hard, they won't wipe tough units. They're not elite unit killers, I think, but they can do a good job against some chaff and that kind of thing as well. And potentially this is where you can chop and change my list a little bit. You could always throw like a jump captain in. You could extend this squad out to 10 if you wanted to and that kind of thing. But for my list anyway, at the moment, I've put in 5 of these guys then in that case. If you have some intercessor parts left over, like I had said you would, because there's only a 5-man intercessor squad, and somebody who maybe has some spare jump packs, or you have a 3D printer that gives you jump packs, you could do this without buying the Jump Assault Intercessor kit as well then in that case. So just something to bear in mind. I do appreciate Warhammer costs money. Now I'm going to try and build you a fun list anyway, but if I can find ways to cut corners and maybe save you a few quid along the way, then do. Absolutely. There's plenty of places that sell 3D printed jump packs as well. That might be a whole lot cheaper than spending €47.50 on another kit of 5 Space Marines effectively here, when you can buy a 10-man intercessor squad for a similar price and have 5 of them left over for that. So do watch out for that. But that's the first of our other units in that case then. So this is our deep strike piece, or if you're going to talk about it competitively, you'd call it, I think, a tech unit. So for our next unit here, we have the Ballistus dreadnought. Now, I know I can hear you clickety-clacking on the keyboard already. I can hear you screaming down the thing. White Scars do not like dreadnoughts. They don't. They would rather die a lot of the time than be entombed within these dreadnoughts, effectively, in that case. For them, it's a penance worse than death in that case for a lot of the time. But the Imperium has needs, and so does your army, and you need some anti-tank in this case. So this is your anti-tank unit right here in that case. He's got obviously the Ballistus las cannon, the Ballistus missile launcher. He's pretty good. Slap Oath of Moment on him, give him +1 to wound with Oath of Moment here in that case. He will do a job for you in any 1,000-point game. He really will. I have no luck with them personally. I have a Ballistus dreadnought. I run it in my Crimson Fist list. It hasn't managed to kill anything for me so far. It hasn't managed to do anything so far for me. But I do like it as a unit. A lot of people seem to get really good changes at it, and plus if he shoots something that's not below half strength, he can reroll the hit roll natively without Oath of Moment. So that's pretty tasty as well in that case. So I do really like him. He was one of obviously the new models that came out with the 10th edition starter box set. So if anyone's got any Leviathan copies lying around that might have one of these, save yourself a bit of money, build him, turn him into a White Scar. He looks really cool in white and red, I can assure you, trust me. But yeah, and plus, who doesn't love a good dreadnought in a 40k army? Dreadnoughts are everywhere, and they're everywhere for a reason. It's because they look really good. As you can see, this one's obviously out of stock on Games Workshop at the moment because they're so popular. But this is our long range anti tank as well. He can hang back with the normal intercessors here and that kind of thing, taking pot shots downwind, and he will be your anti vehicle or your anti tank in this case as well. Now we're going to get into something a little bit spicy in this case, right? So the next unit we're going to add to this is a 6-man Bladeguard veteran unit here in that case. Bladeguard vets, you heard me right. They look stunning in white. I've only seen them once or twice in white with the White Scars paint job on them. They look absolutely stunning. They're very busy models. I think they're very busy. There's a lot of details all over them and that kind of thing to paint. But when they're painted well, oh man, do they look well. They look so good. Bladeguard veterans, I think they were in 9th edition. They were in the 9th edition starter box set, I think it was. They were in Indomitus. They are one of the best looking Space Marine units I think I've ever seen. They really are one of the best. So I could not include them in this list for the very first list that I'm doing here in that case. These would be fantastic with Corsaro Khan. And that's my thinking behind it. They already have an invulnerable save, so we don't need the invulnerable save off of our librarian in that case. The librarian would join the normal assault intercessors, and he would give them the 4-up invulnerable save then in that case. So that makes your normal assault intercessors really tough to kill. Bladeguard veterans are natively very tough to kill with their 4-up invulnerable save. And then, of course, whenever they're in a fight phase as well, they could choose to reroll the saving throw of 1, or they can choose to reroll hit rolls of 1. So they're extra tough then in that case. We're also giving them Lance with Corsaro Khan then in that case, which is really useful on a charge here in that case, because it means you don't have to Oath of Moment whatever target you're planning on charging with these guys. Now, you probably will anyway, to be totally honest with you. But if you wanted to do like a reroll of 1 to hit, for example, which is great because they hit on 3s anyway, Corsaro Khan will give you a Lance for +1 to wound as well. All of a sudden, T6 upwards doesn't seem like such a mountain to climb for these guys anymore. They're all of a sudden kind of doing the work, which is really good. And I really like a 6-man squad of these. I only have 3 of them for my Crimson Fists list, but I really want to up it to 6 because actually they're really cool models. They're really they're good fighters. They'll do a lot of hard work. They're kind of hard to shift as well. I find their killing power sometimes a bit lacking, which is why I would pair them up with Corsaro Khan for that Lance ability, because that would just up their killing power a little bit. But let me know what you think, guys. Is that a bit of a left field pick for White Scars throwing in Bladeguard veterans? I'm not entirely sure, but I really like that pick, to be honest with you. I think it's something you don't see in a lot of White Scars list. Everybody focuses on bikes and buggies and speeders and all that kind of stuff. I think Bladeguard vets are a really left-hand pick, but they're really cool. And if you get some good like 3D printed parts, for example, and that kind of stuff, or even like some of the Heresy close combat sprues and that kind of stuff, the combat weapons in Heresy, throw like a Guandao or the Glaives or the Tulwar blades or anything like that, anything from any of those, I think that would look really cool, and you could make them look really unique as White Scar Bladeguard veterans as well. They could really stand out with some tribal markings as well. So do let me know what you think. Is that a really left field pick? Is it spicy? Is it not spicy? Or is it just a very tepid take? So let me know what you think. Okay guys, and for the last unit in this army then, in that case, for the last unit in this list, I have a unit of 6 Outriders here. You didn't think I was going to go all the way through a White Scars army without putting some bikes in it, did you? So the bikes will obviously join the Chaplain on bike. I don't know if Corsaro Khan can lead a bike. I don't know if he's lone operative, which would be really cool. I think that would be really spicy, giving him lone operative so that he's just zooming around the board. You cannot shoot him until he's literally within charging distance of you. I'm sure that would be really broken, but from a narrative perspective, just sounds absolutely awesome in my eyes. I would really like that in that case. But obviously, the Outriders are particularly good when they charge a unit and that kind of thing. You can improve their strength and damage by 1, so they become quite good normal Space Marine killers or Chaos Space Marine killers, depending on which way you view it and that kind of thing, which is normally pretty good. Obviously a 6-man unit as well, some good ablative wounds for that chaplain as well. We're already getting +1 to wound as well, so if when you're charging, you're going to hit with strength 5 and +1 to wound here in that case. So you're effectively swinging with ×6 power swords, nearly. You're maybe 1 pip less AP than a power sword, but I think it's really good. I think it's really useful as a tool to use. Obviously they're so fast as well that you can really get that early board pressure or put somebody on the back foot and that kind of thing. If you don't get that early turn, don't worry, you can hold them back and let them come to you, and then, do you know what, you're even closer for making your charges then in that case. I'm presuming for a lot of this list, by the way, you might use something like Stormlance as well, so you kind of get advance and charge as well. Gladius would probably do a good job with it as well, I think, because you could turn Lance on and off of a few different units as well. But I've tried to make it so that a lot of the melee units actually kind of natively get like a +1 to wound or something like that, just in case you are going for more of a Stormlance kind of vibe and that kind of thing as well. But overall, guys, that is the whole list here. So what do you think? Do you think it's good actually in that case? So just, I'll summarize the list here once more for you, and I'll give you a points breakdown here in that case. So starting from the top, we have Corsaro Khan, joined by his retinue of Bladeguard veterans, 6 Bladeguard veterans here. You've got the chaplain on bike, accompanied by 6 Outriders. You've got the librarian, accompanied by 10 assault intercessors. You've got a 5-man intercessor squad, a 5-man jump assault intercessor squad, and a ballistus dreadnought then for your range damage. So altogether, guys, that total points values comes to 990 points. He gives you 10 points for enhancements then in that case. You can chop and change that as you see fit. But guys, what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Am I talking absolute rubbish? Is there a much better army that can be led by Subodin Khan? I kind of like the feel of this one personally. It's quite well rounded. You've got a bit of anti-tank, you've got a lot of punch in close combat, you've got a bit of range in there. We don't know what Subodin Khan can do yet, which is really exciting in its own right. But tune in for the next one, guys. If you've got any particular ones you want me to do next, I have the Iron Hands and the Imperial Fists on our next one I'm looking at. So who'll join Darneth Lysander or who'll join our new Iron Hands captain? Post in the comments below which one you want me to do first. I'm happy to take opinions on any of them, to be honest with you. But as always, thank you very much for your time. Like and subscribe, and have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.